When it comes down to what you should be growing in your garden, everybody is going to have their own opinion on it. But there are some plants that you should always be growing. And it got me thinking about, what is the greatest garden plant of all time? Calling something the greatest is a pretty big claim. So I took a bunch of different factors, put them all together, and I think I found that plant. It needed to be something that's really easy to grow, that can thrive in different temperatures, different weather conditions, different climates. It had to have high yields that last all season, disease and pest resistance, fast growth rates. A plant that actually makes your soil better when you grow it. You're probably already growing these plants, but you may not be utilizing them to their full potential. And the winner is beans. Before you tune out, just hear me out. Before we even talk about how easy beans are to grow, let's talk about how versatile beans are. Beans are really healthy and they have a really good shelf life. They last a long time in the fridge. You could freeze them, you can dry them out, and you can eat them fresh. And that's great because beans are a high yield plant. Beans can be planted all season long. It's one of the first seeds we sow in our gardens. But did you know throughout the growing season, you could re-sow beans every couple weeks, so you have them all season. They're not too picky on temperatures. They can tolerate cool temperatures, and they really like the heat. Get a lot of rain? No problem. The beans can tolerate wet soil. They can also tolerate dry soil. Some people think that you need full sun to grow beans, but my beans do just fine in shadier locations. Maybe you got a smaller garden and you just don't want to dedicate space to beans. Good news is, you do not have to. I don't. You know where I plant beans? Everywhere I can. Anywhere I can find open space, I like to plant beans. I got some beans underneath tomatoes. I got beans surrounding a zucchini, beans in front of cucumbers, beans growing right through some eggplants, beans growing through peppers, more beans with tomatoes and some squash, beans growing right through all this okra. Had some empty space in this mess here, popped a few beans in the ground. This fence right here started out with all peas, and during the heat of the summer, the peas start fading. I made sure after I planted the peas to get some pole beans in the ground. So as the peas started to fade, these pole beans took over. I even planted bush beans to fill in everything. So here's what you do. You plant your garden the way you want to plant your garden. Any empty space left over, plant beans. Beans will shade the soil and stop weeds from coming in. An edible living mulch. That's pretty cool. And the beans aren't going to rob any nutrients from your plants. They actually make your soil better. Beans are a really good companion plant. Beans are in the legume family, so they are a nitrogen fixing plant, which makes them a really good companion for stuff like tomatoes, stuff that really likes nitrogen. You could plant beans around and they're able to take atmospheric nitrogen, pump it into the roots, and share it with the soil. If you've ever wondered why farmers rotate corn and beans, it's for this reason, because corn uses a lot of nitrogen out of the soil. So when they plant beans, they're pumping nitrogen back into the soil, which is going to make the next year's corn grow even better. So think of your garden the same way. Wherever you got beans planted now, next year you're going to have really high nitrogen soil. I'm going to go around now and get a bean harvest going. Cool thing about harvesting beans is the more beans you pick, the more beans you're going to get from your plants. Beans are cool because there's really no right time to pick them. You can get them when they're even small like this, when they're young and tender, or you can even get them when they're larger. When you're doing bean harvest, you're going to miss some beans, but that's okay because the beans you miss are going to be free seeds for next year. I got all these beans just from this small area, and that's only one harvest. You can come out here every week and get a harvest like this all season long. So much production in small spaces. The only pests that bother my green beans are pretty much just Japanese beetles and slugs, but it seems like the plants can tolerate it pretty good and it doesn't affect the yield. Well, there we go. Pretty decent haul just from a couple plants. They are more than just food. Greatest garden plant of all time. Planted everywhere for a healthier garden. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, leave some comments, and thanks for watching.